Now we're live. Hi, everybody. Hey, chat room. It's the pre-show for today's N10-007 Network Plus study group, a Tuesday study group for Network Plus. You don't get that very often, but here we are. It's the holiday season. That's why we're going to cram Network Plus in Tuesday. We'll do Security Plus on Thursday, and then the rest of the month, I'm not going to be doing any live streams. So that's how it goes. Hello, chat room. Hey, everybody. I see DC's checking in, South Africa, New York City. Got a lot of folks hanging out. KSA is here. Memphis is in the chat. We've got all Network Plus questions for you today. Let's check the cameras. I'm recording here. Are we recording down here? Yes, we are. See my Cylons going. We're streaming, so that's already recording. I'm recording where we're going. Okay, it's all good. Hey, Michigan and Houston and Minneapolis and Orlando, Florida. There's the Floridians checking in. There's Newark. Mesquite, Texas, welcome. Hello, Berlin, Germany, and Atlanta and D.C. again. Tennessee's here. We got more Florida checking in. Thanks for being here. Hello, Russia and Georgia. Those might be the same places or near the same places, rather. Jamaica, South Carolina, Arizona, North Carolina, Fort Worth, Texas. It's going by so fast now. I can't keep up. We've got about 8 minutes before we get started. This is the pre-show. We're not doing anything yet. We're just sort of hanging out. If you have questions or things, we can talk about them in the chat room. We'll do Q&A, live interactive Q&A. Instructions on how to do that I'll talk about at the beginning, or you can find the instructions on professormesser.com/live. Live. It's live. We've got, in the first hour, I will ask you questions. In the second hour, I'll open up the phone lines and take questions from the chat room. And we'll see where that goes. And the questions from the chat room and questions calling in can be anything. I guess I should get things like Skype preloaded. Do I have my call-in stuff loaded here? I do. Am I logged in? I am not. Let's log in with my password program. There we go. It's very nice. Full screen would be nice there. Error processing form. It's because that screen timed out. Let's try it again. Refresh. No. It's refreshing the form that tells me that it timed out. That doesn't help me. Let's resubmit. There we go. Much better. Now, let's see. We need a presentation. There it is. There's the presentation. Hey, UK, thanks for being here live. Glad you're able to be here when we're here. Of course, you can call in anytime. I'm just not here when you call in. The call-in line for the studio is only on when I turn it on and when it's off. It's not like a studio line. It's not like there's a phone in front of me. So that's what that's about. In fact, it's a cloud-based service. I call into the cloud-based service when the show starts, or when the after show starts. Not really when the show starts. 6 minutes before we get started. 6 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. This is, should you take A+ before Network Plus? I guess that's kind of depends on what you want to do. What is your goal? What is your career outlook? What are you trying to do? Are employers looking for a Network Plus over an A+? Are you looking for a job that's very specific to networking? Those are, there's not any right answer or wrong answer to that, only the answer that's correct for you. So you have to kind of figure out, is it correct for me? And figure out from there where you go. And that's sort of the question throughout your career will be that way. So what have I got here? Slider, that should be all the way down. That looks good. Cameras are up and running. Everything looks good there. I think we're in pretty good shape. Hopefully all my questions are correct. Let's make sure the questions I have here are the right ones. They look to be. Okay, good. Everything's working. Everything's synchronizing properly now. That one bites you and you don't let that one happen again. So anyway. So if for those of you that are here, this is Network Plus today. We're going to do Security Plus on Thursday. So you're welcome to check back on Thursday if you want to do some security stuff or just hang out. It's just kind of fun. So it's kind of neat to go through that as well. Whenever I start going through the process of figuring out what do I do with making sure I have the right questions, it's always a challenge. But I think if I get through the Network Plus and Security Plus on Thursday, we'll be in good shape. Where's the link for the test? ProfessorMesser.com/QA. And those links are on ProfessorMesser.com/live. And I will be talking to you on how to do that in just a moment anyway. So don't worry. I will not start without you. Is Thursday going to be focused on 501 or 601? I think Thursday's Security Plus will be our last 501 study group. So sad to see it go. But I think it's time, because by the time the January study group comes along, there will be a couple of 601 books available. Not a lot, but a couple. I think a couple's pretty good. And then by March, there will be, I think, 3 more. I think if I looked at it right. So there'll be plenty of content. People are sort of leaning the direction of 601. I'm still telling people they should not be taking the 601. They should be taking the 501. But who am I? You can't. There's reasons I know why people want to take the 601. I just can't figure out where that is. The questions I'll be asking, you will be answering at ProfessorMesser.com/QA. ProfessorMesser.com/QA. You put in ProfessorMesser.com and you put a slash, and then you put a QA at the end. I'll tell you more about that just a moment. Yeah, the 501 is going to be so much easier, and in some ways gives you more technical knowledge than the 601. People don't talk about that. They talk about the 601's newer. Yeah, but the 601 actually is not as technical in some ways. In other ways, there is some technical stuff in the 601. It's an odd mix, I must say, in the 601. I think I know what they were trying to do. They sort of just threw everything in to the pot and hoped it would all cook up pretty well. I'm not sure if that's how it's going to turn out. So we're going to see for the next 3.5 years. We will see how it turns out. That's the beauty of these. You just never know. We've got a few minutes before we get started. 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go. And we'll do some live Q&A. And we'll ask questions. And we'll do some network stuff. And we'll talk about networking. We'll talk about making it all work. And figuring out what we should be doing. And what is the best way to do this. Got yesterday I was in here. I shot 7 Security Plus videos. I think I probably have about 15 waiting to be edited to edit them. So I've got a bunch in the can. There's just tons of Security Plus. It's just going to constantly be a wave of constant security here over the next number of weeks, which is great. I'm happy to do it. Happy to have that to do, quite honestly. So pretty important. Purchase your notes and exams and audios. They're amazing. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate that. Your support is absolutely appreciated. Is IT Pro TV a great secondary source for info? I got to tell you, I don't really spend a lot of time looking at other content. I have no idea, which is kind of sad, but I've got enough to do. I just don't have time to hang out and watch those. They have a good name, I guess. Did they get bought, or they bought somebody else? They're getting bought, or a bunch of people are buying. Am I thinking of the right people? Like it just happened. I don't know. I can't keep up. I'm happy just to be here and churning away with what we're doing here. I can barely keep up with everything. I have so much that I want to get done and just not enough to do it to make that happen. So we'll figure it out. So always good to know. Let's see if, 10 seconds. I guess I should prep something here. That looks right. This looks right. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I don't have the right graphic. Do I not have the right graphic? Let's pull it up and have a look. Do I have any graphics? You know, it's the little things. Oh, it is December. I did make a graphic. There it is. How about that? Thinking ahead. A horrible mistake. Let's see if we can make this happen now. Let's do a live stream, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2020 N10-007 Network Plus Study Group from your friends here at ProfessorMesser.com. Thanks for joining us. My name is James Messer. I will be your host for this next hour of Network Plus Q&A. It'll probably be more than an hour. I'll ask you questions in the first hour, and then after that, probably the second hour, we'll talk all about questions that you have. It doesn't have to be me asking the questions all the time. So I'll be glad to take your phone calls, questions from the chat room. There will be plenty to talk about as we go through that. I've got questions for you today, and I want you to be able to participate as you ask these questions. As we go through the questions, I have instructions on how you can follow along with us. All you have to do is pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. That will take you to the question and answer. There'll be a question waiting for you right there. It's a nice little service called Socrative. We'll redirect you over to the Socrative, and there's a question there. Now, you can also have an app on your mobile device. This is the Socrative Student app. Make sure you download the Student app and not the Teacher app. Teacher app's the one for me. The Socrative Student app is what you want. It will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Now, if we've done all of those things and it's working the way we would hope, you will see a question waiting for you. And that question asks, this is actually a question from last month. So this is our test question. It's our rewind question to see if you're able to get in and answer these questions. It asks, a network administrator is troubleshooting an issue with a blocked port number on a firewall. Which of the following OSI layers would be most associated with this issue? This is definitely a multiple choice, but it's every choice. Is it layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, or layer 7? So those are the 7 layers of the OSI model. I didn't really pick and choose here. You have to choose the right one based on this particular problem. We will come back to this question in just a moment. Lock in your question by going to professormesser.com/QA. Please don't put any answers in the chat room. You want to lock it in at that website, professormesser.com/QA. Thanks for being here. We've got a lot of Q&A to go through in this first hour. And not only do we go through questions and answers, but I try to give you an explanation of why a question might be right, why the other answers might be wrong. We'll talk all about the details. This is all from the N10-007 Network Plus exam. You can also find all of our Network Plus training videos on YouTube at professormesser.com/YouTube. Once a week, I have a pop quiz question. You can see that posted on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. There's also a pretty picture version of the same question. If you're more of an Instagrammer, you like to watch those go by, follow us on Instagram. You'll get a pop quiz question in your Instagram feed at professormesser.com/Instagram. This current version of the Network Plus exam is the N10-007. It was released on March the 1st of 2018. And I actually have more detailed numbers than this. I'm going to give you, I'm surprised I didn't put them into this particular view. Of when the N10-007 is planned to be retired. So I'm going to click on a few things on my side because the next, this exam is going to be around for quite some time. They changed a lot of the exam dates with all of the changes going on here. The N10-007, the estimated retirement is going to be March. I do have it on here. March of 2022 is the first. I put first quarter. So that's close enough is when we will see this. So even though it was released in 2018, this one's going to be around for about 4 years. Usually they're around about 3.5 years. This one's going to be around for 4 years, which is pretty long for a lot of these certification exams. So you will see this. The point is, if you're studying right now in December of 2020, you've got plenty of time to study. Make sure you spend all of that time earning that Network Plus certification. We've got the exam itself. If you go sit down and take the exam, it's a single exam. It's 90 minutes long. You can get a maximum of 90 questions, and you need to score 720 on a scale from 100 to 900. It's kind of an odd scale, but that's the way they do it. It's a combination of multiple choice questions, like the one we just did, and performance-based questions. We'll talk more about those in just a moment. If you want to get your hands on these objectives, make sure you download them. They're free. Go to professormesser.com/objectives. Follow that link over to the CompTIA website, and you can absolutely have the objectives to download and use. I've grabbed all of my videos, all of the audio from these videos, my course notes. I have an exam hacks ebook that helps you understand some strategies for sitting down during the exam. which really applies to any type of exam, A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and others. There's lots of, also get priority Q&A to this study group. You'll find all of this on my website at professormesser.com/netsuccess. Feel free to go and look that up as well. This is available for replay immediately afterwards. It's on YouTube, and it takes a few minutes to process, and then it's available. You can watch the live video or the replay of the live video. There's also an audio podcast version of this available if you liked having these downloaded to your podcasting app. You can find it at professormesser.com/podcast, and you can subscribe to my A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups, all from that podcast link. About a day after we're done here, you'll notice if you go out to YouTube that suddenly timestamps have magically appeared in the video description, and you can click on those timestamps to go exactly where you'd like in the video. Well, it's not magic at all. It's my marketing manager, Lori, who's having to listen into this and watch the whole thing and put timestamps in. Hi, Lori. Everybody say hi to Lori. If you're someone who uses those timestamps, let her know. She watches the chat replay as well as this goes by. So thank you, Lori, for doing that. She has to listen. I told her, just put it on 2x speed and maybe it won't be quite so bad for you. She has to go through that entire process. That's something, go back to any of these replayed videos, go to the YouTube video description. You can find the questions and the answers, and the whole thing is right there. You'll find exactly what you're looking for all of this. Let's go back to that question that I asked originally, which was, a network administrator is troubleshooting an issue with a blocked port on a firewall. Which of the following OSI layers would be most associated with this issue? It's a good question. There are many different options available between layers 1 and layer 7. So let's find out what you think to this. Let's see how you did with this one. We have kind of a tie for layer 3 and layer 4. Layer 3, 39% of the vote. Layer 4, 35% of the vote. So quite a mix. And then everything else, single digits. A tie for second between layers 2 and 5. And then we've got layers 6 and 7 at 5% apiece. And only 1% of you said layer 1 was the right answer. This is one, if you ever see any question and it's talking about dealing with port numbers, dealing with TCP or UDP, or the port numbers for TCP or UDP, then it's talking about layer 4. It's talking about the transport layer of the OSI model. That's where everything happens with port numbers. A blocked port number on the firewall, because the traditional firewalls, I say they're sort of the old school firewalls, will allow or block traffic based on IP address and port number. The IP address being layer 3, the port number being layer 4. So anytime you're trying to fix the problem with a port number or block or allow a port number, it's always going to be OSI layer 4 that we're associated with. And if you answered D, layer 4, you got that one absolutely right. If this was an IP address problem, if you were trying to connect and use an IP address with this blocked problem, allow or disallow a particular range of IP addresses, a block of IP addresses, you could certainly do that as well, but that would be layer 3. In this case, our question talks specifically about port numbers, so it would be layer 4. If you answered D, layer 4, then you got that one right, to have all of those there. We've got a bunch more multiple choice questions like this coming up. Stick around for those. Before we do multiple choice questions, though, I want to take you through a sample of a performance-based question. For those of you familiar with the exams, you know that the first handful of questions you get are not multiple choice. A lot of people sit down for the exam, they don't realize this. They sit down and suddenly they're getting these questions that are not multiple choice. So now they're having to deal with questions that are drag and drop. They're matching questions. They have to put things in a particular order. They're filling in the blank. They're at a command prompt. There's so many different things that can happen there. So I create every month for you, this first new question of the month is a performance-based question. Sometimes they're command prompt questions. Sometimes they're matching. Sometimes they're fill in the blank. This one today is a matching question. So let's see how you do with this one. This matching question doesn't work so well for those listening in on the audio podcast because it is a graphical question. There's 4 pictures here of interfaces, and the question is match the cable/interface to the name. So I have 4 pictures on the screen, and then I have 8 different options. So you are only going to be able to choose 4 of these. There'll be 4 left over at the end, for example. There'll be 4 of these you don't use. So to try to make it a little bit more difficult than simply matching it 1-to-1. So you have 8 options to choose from. At least it's not fill in the blank, right? Wait until Security Plus. I have a different one for Security Plus. We're going to try a different style on Thursday. So I think this one works pretty well to have this here. The 6 different options are SC, RJ45, DB9, F connector, BNC, LC, or MTRJ. There's 8 different options there to choose from, and I only have 4 pictures there. Some of these pictures look kind of easy, I think. I'm looking at them and I think, okay, that one I can pick out very easily. Maybe 2 of these I can pick out easily, and then maybe it becomes a little more difficult to break these down. This might be one of these where you know what it isn't, so maybe you can cross them off the list. That might help as well to be able to get through there. The answer for that first question was layer 4. Layer 4 was the answer to that first question. Thanks for yeah, I must have had to get out, grab some coffee. I'll be back. Oh, wait, I missed the answer. The answer was layer 4. That's a good thing to know, though. And yes, for those in the chat room that were asking, so what if it's not an old school firewall? What's the latest firewall? It would be a next generation firewall. It goes all the way up to layer 7. Those are really the most modern. They've been around for 14, 15 years now. Next generation firewalls, they've been around a long time. So absolutely, those that's what most people have these days. If they're doing a firewall and they are a really an organization of any size these days, it's probably a next-gen firewall. Match the cable interface to the name. A lot of you are putting in your answers for these 4. I know the fiber connectors get me as well. It's always the fiber connectors. There's so many different settings, configuration, specifications. You have to get the right kind with the right connector. I always mess something up, so you have to remember what they are. Let's step through each of these, though. These 4 different connectors, and let's see what they are. Let's start with number 1. That is a copper connector. It has 9 pins on it. They're even numbered. If you look carefully at the connector, there's numbers next to each one of the pins. That is a DB9. The D is the D-type connector, D subminiature, because it looks like the letter D. That's where that comes from. B is the size of the connector, and interestingly enough, that is not the B size. It's technically the E size. You'll sometimes even see this sold as a DE9 connector, which is actually correct. A little bit of trivia there. But because the initial serial cables that we used were 25-pin, much longer 25-pin connectors that were appropriately labeled DB25, when we shortened this to the 9-pin, we started calling it a DB9, thinking that the DB referred to just the connector type, I guess. So you may see this as DB9 or DE9. Both are correct. One is technically correct. One is just what we call it now, and everybody calls them. So that's the DB9 connector. That is what we will accept anyway for that answer. Let's go to number 2, a fiber connector. All this fiber connectors are so difficult. Which kind of fiber connector is this? This is an LC connector. LC is the type of connector for that fiber. It is generally one that has these smaller little connectors, has these locking pieces right at the top. It's a very simple locking mechanism because it's just plastic. You push it in, it locks. You have to push the plastic down to release it and pull it out. Nothing more complicated than that, but it locks in there. It's not coming out. Once you get that in, it's just push it in and then pull it straight out once you disconnect that lock. 3 on our list is another fiber connector. Difficult to tell because you can't see the fiber, but there are 2 little holes right in the front. That's where the fiber is inside of that connector, and that is an MTRJ connector. MTRJ is that type of fiber connection. It's kind of smaller. It's a smaller form factor to be able to have those. You have a bunch of those there. And the last on our list is number 4. That one should look familiar. We have, if we had to count this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different pins, and it looks like all 8 of them are in use. That would be an RJ45 connector. That is exactly what you should be looking for. Those are just 4 of the many connector types you need to know. In fact, all 8 of the connector types that are listed there are connector types you should know for the exam. They are on the exam objectives. It becomes pretty useful to have those. The MTRJ probably not as popular, but I have seen those used. Those are just fiber connectors, normally on a switch, usually where you need some density. You want to have a switch connection. Switches are 19 inches wide. All of the networking equipment goes into a rack that is 19 inches wide. So you've got 19 inches. So how many ports can you cram into 19 inches? A lot of the fiber ports, like an SC connector, are kind of wide. What if you could use up half the space? If you could do that, you could put in twice the interfaces. And you have more interfaces, you have a lot more density. You can probably get a better cost associated with it. A lot there. That's so on those pieces. There's locking on this one too. These are different sizes. These are kind of relative on the screen. The LC is a little bit wider than the MTRJ. So there's locking mechanisms in all of these fiber connections, but they are different depending on the type you are using. So hopefully you got those correct. I was flipping through the fill in the blanks you were sending me, and most people did pretty well with that one. A lot of you kind of are trying to figure out the details of that number 3. Number 3, I think, threw most of us. So get familiar with those MTRJs, and you'd be doing extremely well. That is our performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you did pretty well on that one. We have a new performance-based question every month. You can always go back and look at our replays and step through all of the performance-based questions as well. Let's shift gears to kind of a difficult question, but it is a multiple choice question. Next question on our list is relatively straightforward. What is decimal 154 in binary? One of the exam objectives for the Network Plus exam deals with subnetting. There is some digital to physical type things on there, plenty to go through. So feel free to have a look through your exam objectives. But of course, you do need to understand how to convert between binary and decimal, especially helps you if you are going to be able to do any subnetting. You'll do a lot of decimal and binary conversions for a lot of other things as well. So decimal 154 in binary, see if you can calculate it out. I do have some options available, and I'm not going to go through each one of these because it's just a bundle of ones and zeros, but I have 5 different options to choose from. Yes, I'm not going to spell out, is it 0001, 1001? Is it 1001? I just sound ridiculous. Find the one that matches with all the ones and zeros and put them in there. Replays of this are available immediately afterwards on YouTube. Takes a couple of minutes for it to process, and the audio replay usually is up near the end of the day for all of those. You can always come back to professormesser.com/live or go to my YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube. Do your conversions. Maybe you can write down the conversion chart. Am I giving you too many hints? Write down the conversion chart. Convert from decimal to binary. You get to a point where you can almost do it in your head in a lot of ways, especially when you get into things like Linux permissions. It becomes a little bit easier to do that. No using of the calculator, no using of the Google, and no using of the calculator. You don't get a calculator when you sit down for these exams, so don't use it now. Maybe use it if you can't stand it and you want to see if you're right. Okay. You can do that. You can use fingers, but you can't talk during the exam. That's the other thing, that if you're on the exam and you are, especially the exam you take at home, that is one where you do not want to be in a situation where you are talking, because they will tell you in the chat, stop talking. Can't talk. Can't cover your mouth. Can't talk. But you can, there is a whiteboard you can type things into, so you can do some conversions. You don't have access to paper and pencil if you take the exam at home. You do have a way to do it with pencil and paper if you are taking it in a testing center. So some advantages if you take it at a testing center, and that is one of them, to be able to do that. So let's figure this out. Let's step through all of this and figure out what this might be. So let's go to what is decimal 154 in binary. Let's do a binary to decimal conversion. So we know we're going to take a single binary byte here. So 8 bits. We'll create the area here for the 8 bits that are there. And then I'm going to write down my conversion chart. I'll start over in the far right. I'll put a 1. I'll double it, 2. I'll double that to 4, double that to 8, double to 16, 32, 64, and 128. There's only one combination of ones and zeros that all of those would add up to 154. Now, if you think you know the answer, please no answers or hints in the chat room. We're going to step through this step by step to figure out the details. So let's go through decimal 154, and we'll start over on the left side, and we'll start doing these calculations. We'll figure out is 128 less than or equal to 154? What's absolutely less than 154? Yes, it is. So we will bring down 128. We'll put a 1 there. Yes is 1. No is 0. That's the process we'll take to do this conversion. So we'll go to the next one, which is 64. So is 64, or really 128 plus 64, because we have to use the ones that we answered yes to earlier, is that, which is 192, less than or equal to 154? 192 is not less than and not equal to 154. That would be a 0. We're going to bring down the 0, so we would not add 64 to that. So let's do it. Let's do another combination. We know we have 128. Let's add 128 to 32, which would be 160. Is that less than or equal to 154? It is not. It's more than 154. It gets another 0 on the screen. To the next one, which asks is 128 plus 16, which is 144, less than or equal to 154. So you keep going through this list and figuring out if all of these, keep adding them up to see if it's less than or equal to 154. And once you go through all of that and figure out the details, you've now created an entire series of bits that you can now put together. So decimal 154 in binary equals 1001 1010. That's it. That is the conversion process. Really not that difficult to do the entire conversion from one to the other. It's going to be perfect in here. It's going to fit exactly into this list every time. That conversion chart is a lifesaver. That's something that can really help you during the exam and can really help you for your subnetting. So make sure you're familiar with the conversion process, not only from decimal to binary, but also binary to decimal. Now, if we go to look to see how we did, if we know the answer is 1001 1010, we know that the answer must be what most of you said. Answer B, 73% of you said that it was 1001 1010. That is exactly the correct answer. You did very well. What a crew. Did extremely well with doing your binary conversions. You've really been working on these. So well done with that. It's one of those where it's a skill that you're going to use for the rest of your career. It doesn't matter what you're going to do. You could be a system administrator. You could work on databases. You could have a job dealing with web servers. You could handle Linux, Windows. Doesn't matter. You're going to be using decimal and binary conversions all the time to be able to do that. So very useful to have that there. Yeah, during your exam, if you are in an exam center, you will have a glossy piece of paper and a dry erase marker that you can use for questions like this. If you are at home, it is a online whiteboard. You can just type things in if you would like to. Similar idea to type it in. So just depends on how you like to work. Some of you prefer writing on the whiteboard. Maybe a testing center would be a better situation for you. Just depends. So if you answered B, 1001 1010, got it absolutely right. 74 of you were spot on with that. Let's shift gears. No more math, okay? Or at least very little math going forward. Let's do another question. This non-math related question, there are numbers though. Is that bad? Question asks, a network administrator needs to transmit gigabit Ethernet to a remote site 4 kilometers away. Which of the following standards would be the best option? Would that be 1000 base TX, 1000 base LX, 10G base T, 1000 base T, or 1000 base SX? A network administrator needs to transmit gigabit Ethernet to a remote site 4 kilometers away. Which of the following standards would be the best option? Would it be 1000 base TX, 1000 base LX, 10G base T, 1000 base T, or 1000 base SX? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Being able to work through those. The best option here is going to be knowing what these standards mean. There are not a lot of Ethernet standards to work through, but there are things that you know. All of these are real standards. I did not make those options up. All of these are real things. So if any of these don't look familiar to you, then you should find out. Now, there could be standards I put on here that might not be in the exam objectives, but all of these are real standards. In fact, there's so many standards for Ethernet, and most of them you will never have to know. But fortunately, there's a limited number in the exam objectives you go through. I always talk about going back to exam objectives, and that's why. Everything you need to know is in the exam objectives. Everything you need to know to pass the exam is listed in those exam objectives. Now, of course, you have to now learn that information that is listed there. It doesn't tell you how to learn it, but it tells you need to know it. So it gives you a list of exam objectives, a list of standards in the exam objectives you need to know. I wonder if I have my exam objectives up. Be able to bring those up. We can have a look at this in the after show. I do. We'll have a look at that in just a bit to have all of those. How long have I been dealing with IT? Well, since I got out of college, which was just a few years ago. That's how simple that was that time. Back when we had to make electricity on our own. We had to find some coal and heat it up. It was fun times in IT back when I got out of college. Let's see how you did with this question that asked, a network administrator needs to transmit gigabit Ethernet to a remote site 4 kilometers away. Which of the following standards would be the best option? Would it be 1000 base TX? Would it be 1000 base LX? Would it be 10G base T, 1000 base T, or 1000 base SX? Let's see how you answered. Oh, we're just not sure. We are all over the place here. 33% of us said 1000 base LX. 20% said 10G base T. We kind of have a tie, a three-way tie for third, kind of between 1000 base TX, 1000 base T, and 1000 base SX. Well, let's go through these standards for this and figuring out the details. This is one we need to know. Let's talk specifically about gigabit Ethernet over fiber. Fortunately, there's only 2 standards for gigabit Ethernet over fiber you need to know for this exam. You may have to know others for other things you're doing in your career, but these are 2 ones, are very common ones that you should probably know regardless for how this works out. One is 1000 base SX. This is gigabit Ethernet, usually using near infrared light. Doesn't necessarily have to be any type of laser type connectivity. We generally refer to the SX as a short haul type connection. I'm not sure what the letters actually don't refer to anything specifically, but they try to make it something that is familiar or something you can reference. So the S in gigabit SX for gigabit connectivity on a 1000 base SX connection, usually you get around 220 to 500 meters depending on the fiber type. So that is one where you're not going to get 4 kilometers away by running 1000 base SX over fiber. Now, if you were running 100 megabit over fiber, this type of fiber, you might get farther, but not for gigabit connectivity. Very limited on its distance, still much farther than copper, but not the 4 kilometers that we needed. 1000 base LX, you can think of as long haul, short and long. It's what that SX and LX, that's how I remember anyway. Doesn't actually, it's not an acronym for anything, but it might as well be. We just called it, we just named it. That's what we just called this acronym. It's in the standards now. We're going to put it down. Gigabit Ethernet over long wavelength laser. If this is a multi-mode fiber that you're running 1000 base LX over, then you'll get 550 meters. But if you're going 4 kilometers, you might as well put single mode fiber in the ground or in the air, usually in the ground. And you can get up to 5 kilometers with gigabit Ethernet running 1000 base LX standard on both sides over that 4-kilometer connection. So 1000 base LX is a very good option to choose. And if you choose answer B, 1000 base LX, 34% of you chose that option. That is the right answer. Now, all of these other answers are ones you might want to consider, but they are different standards. We know that if we're transmitting gigabit Ethernet, that's 1000 megabits per second. And if you have a standard in Ethernet that starts with a 1000, that's gigabit Ethernet. So the 10G base T is 10 gig Ethernet. So that's why we know that answer C would not be the right answer. 1000 base T and 1000 base TX are actually copper standards for gigabit Ethernet. And we know those copper standards are not going to go any farther than 100 meters. We need to go 4 kilometers. So that's not going to work for us, those copper connections. It needs to be fiber. The only 2 fiber connections on here are 1000 base SX and 1000 base LX. LX is the one that goes the farthest. That's the one we need. SX does not go far enough to be able to match that 4-kilometer distance. So in this particular case, the answer is 1000 base LX. If you answered B, 36% of you, now 37, you're cheating, now got the answer absolutely correct. Let's get another question in. So yes, 10G base T is copper. So that is a copper connection for 10 gigabit Ethernet. More details. Let's shift gears now to another connection. This question asks a security question. Which of the following would be the best way to block network flows containing non-encrypted credit card numbers? Would that be an AUP, a password policy, a DLP, a privileged user agreement, or international export controls? Which of the following would be the best way to block network flows containing non-encrypted credit card numbers? Is that AUP, password policy, DLP, privileged user agreement, or international export controls? If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Have it all there. This is one, hopefully you're familiar with all 5 of these. All 5 of these are real things. I didn't make up any of those, so it's good to know what those happen to be. This is one where you have to understand maybe what some of these terms are, what some of the policies are, what some of the abbreviations are, what the idea is behind the question, because the question's not asking you for what the abbreviations mean or what the policies do. They're asking you how you would implement those and having them there. So this is a good one to step through to try to figure out what would be the best way. And that, of course, is another one of those great keywords in these questions, is many times they'll ask you, what is the best way? What is the first thing? What is the next thing you should do? And you have to know, given all of these answers, because in this answer, 2 or maybe even 3 of these things could be used to block network flows containing non-encrypted credit card numbers. But I didn't ask you which ones could be used. I asked you what the best way would be, given the options that are available there. And that's the real key, is there may be other ways to block network flows that aren't listed here. Well, those don't matter because they're not listed. They didn't give you those as an option. So you only have 5 options here. You have to choose from these 5 options and tell me what the best of these 5 happens to be. So another good way to focus in on that and make sure you understand the details of those things. See what you know. So let's lock in your answers. A lot of you have already locked in your answer. Let's see how you did. Which of the following would be the best way to block network flows containing non-encrypted credit card numbers? And would it be an AUP, a password policy, a DLP, a privileged user agreement, or international export controls? 65% of you say DLP is the correct answer. 22% of you say an AUP is the best way to do this. You've got 5% that say privileged user agreement, 4% that say it's a password policy, and 3% that say it's international export controls. Well, if you have any traffic going over your network that is sensitive data, it's a social security number, it's a credit card number, it's a piece of medical information, and you want to prevent it from going across the network, there are tools available that you can plug in that will look for these types of traffic flows and will stop them in their tracks. And that is data loss prevention, DLP. DLP is a series of technologies. It's not any one thing. There is DLP software that you can run on someone's workstation. There's DLP technologies you can put in the cloud. There's DLP appliances you can plug into the network. There's DLP functionality you can enable on a next generation firewall. So DLP can be implemented in many different ways. But the real key is what it does. It is looking for these very specific types of data flows. Take, for example, credit card numbers. Bunches of numbers stuck together aren't necessarily a credit card number. Credit card numbers have a very particular format and a very particular way to tell if it is an actual credit card number. Same thing with Social Security numbers. Not any set of numbers put together is a Social Security number. There are some numbers that were never made Social Security numbers. They were never given out. So those numbers would not be a Social Security number. You shouldn't block them. So that is where you would focus. What you want to do is configure your DLP to look for the type of data flows that you would like to prevent. If you are a company that is collecting credit card numbers and you want to be compliant with your PCI DSS, then you may need to have a data loss prevention device. You will need one. I think it's part of the PCI DSS. You'll need something that can block credit card numbers going through the network. Definitely need different types of firewalls, so many different requirements to be able to do that. And this is what you would need to block things like a set of credit card numbers that are not encrypted. I'll tell you a quick story about DLP technologies. I used to work as a systems engineer for a next generation firewall company that had DLP functionality in. I would go around and plug these things in as demonstrations, evaluation units. There was a warehouse that we plugged this into, and immediately the DLP started firing with alerts saying credit card number, credit card number, credit card number, not encrypted credit card numbers. And we went to look at it, and somebody was transferring a spreadsheet, a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, from the warehouse to the sales office, which was over the wide area network, the section we were looking at. And the DLP caught them transferring it in the clear. No encryption, nothing there to pull from, just stuck it in an Excel spreadsheet and sent it across to the main office. So they were able to change their configurations, change the way they did this, because they needed to get those numbers to the main office, but everything needed to be encrypted. So they put a new process in place to be able to do that. We were able to see that thanks to DLP, how we were able to make that happen. So DLP, 68% of you chose DLP. That is the correct answer. That's what you want to use when you're working through this. The user policies, the way that you tell people what is the best way to use your phone, to use your laptop, to use your desktop computer. The AUP is what gives people the policies to use, but it doesn't actually stop anything. It may tell people, we would like you to transfer all credit card numbers in encrypted form, but it doesn't actually stop them. There's no way to stop anything coming through. So that's not the best way to do it. Is it a way to block, quote unquote, to stop network flows containing non-encrypted credit card numbers? It is a way, because you've now told people, don't do that. Is it the best way? Not given these options, DLP is the best way to block it. AUP is a way to tell people they shouldn't be doing it. So you can start to see the nuances there and how using the best option is the important one. Password policies are a method to tell people how they should create a password. It should be a certain length of password. It should have a certain number of special characters. You shouldn't have to reuse passwords. That's a password policy. That has nothing to do with blocking network flows containing non-encrypted credit card numbers. A privileged user agreement and international export controls are also policies you might have, but they aren't policies that actually affect data flows. There's just a way that you can agree that a user will be able to have access to a certain set of resources in a privileged user agreement, which is useful for people that have additional access, like system administrators. You might have a special user agreement for them. And then international export controls define what you are able to export. There have been times in our nation's history where we were not able to send certain types of data with certain types of encryption out over the network. So we would have those international controls that would prevent us from doing that. So that would not be useful there either. So it's not an acceptable use policy. It's not a password policy. It's not a privileged user agreement. It's not an international export control. The only one here that really fits, and the one that fits the best way to block this is a DLP, the data loss prevention. If you answered C, you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Well, there is a lot on this exam. We've already talked about cabling and fiber and connections with DLP and blocking traffic, and there's so many other things we're about to talk about on here. We're not even close to being done yet. And the way that you can get all of this information is to watch every single one of my Network Plus videos. But it's 101 videos. There's over 12 hours of content that is available for you to watch for free. I don't put it behind a paywall. You don't have to register. You just go out to YouTube and watch them. Or you come to the Professor Messer website and watch them. Very easy to have that there. But there's so much there. You may not be able to go through all 101 videos and take very detailed notes of all of this. That's okay. I've already done it for you. I have notes that talk about the protocols, the subnetting, the cabling, the encryption, the type of devices you might use, the proxies. It's all in here in these course notes. You can plug in these course notes as a PDF or as a physical set of course notes. They exist in the real world as dead trees that I have printed upon. And it's exactly the same information in the physical version versus the digital, but it's all here for the entire exam. All of the details, all of the charts, all of the graphics that I've created, everything is there. So if you ever want to have all of this detail in one single place, you would find it on my Network Plus course notes. You can find out more about this on my website at professormesser.com/NPCN, and you're able to choose between the digital and the physical version as well. If you purchase the physical version, I obviously will ship this to you. It costs a little bit more because it is printed in full color in a very nice, perfect bound, paperback style book. But if you do that, I will give you the digital version for free. So you can start at least reading through it while you're waiting on your delivery. And you can put that on your mobile devices. It's a PDF file. So you can put it on your mobile devices. You can put it on your desktop. You can put it on your laptop. You can read it on your tablet, whatever makes sense for you. And every penny of this goes back to keeping us going here. It's a great way to support the site as well. Go to professormesser.com/NPCN for Network Plus course notes. Let's do another question. Here's another one coming at you right away that asks, during startup, a laptop in the corporate office receives an IP address that is not associated with one of the company IP subnets. Which of the following would be the best way to prevent this from occurring in the future? Would it be Rapid Spanning Tree Protocol? Would it be BPDU Guard? Would it be Root Guard? Would it be DHCP snooping? Or would it be Flood Guard? During startup, a laptop in the corporate office receives an IP address that is not associated with one of the company IP subnets. Which of the following would be the best way to prevent this from occurring in the future? Would it be Rapid Spanning Tree Protocol, BPDU Guard, Root Guard, DHCP snooping, or Flood Guard? Do you think you know the answer? Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock it in. Lock in your answer for all of those. Figure out what's going on for all of that. This is one that is sort of a troubleshooting question combined with a technology question, combined with a implementation question. This one you kind of have to step through for all of those and pieces of this. For those of you wondering about DLP, oh yes, next generation firewalls absolutely have DLP functionality. There are standalone DLPs you can get as well that are even more powerful, but most next generation firewalls have a pretty powerful DLP built into them. And what I was taught, the story I was telling you about finding this on the network came from a next generation firewall and having all of those. Very useful to have that. Now, you definitely don't want a proxy server. Proxy server is like an old school clunky machine that sits in the corner. Nobody uses proxies anymore. They break applications. They're not secure. It's just not a great way. They're slow, just painful. There are things you should proxy. That's a little different, but it's very unusual to proxy things these days. Very specific cases where you might proxy something. Proxy servers are sort of an old style technology that nobody uses anymore. Do email policies count as DLP? Not really. Email policies are more of an email policy. They have a name and what they're doing. DLP is looking for sensitive information and blocking it. You might have DLP built into functionality or a capability. Most email policies don't have a knowledge of what makes up a credit card number. As I mentioned, a credit card number is not just a bunch of numbers squished together. It's a very specific format with a very specific kind of checksum. So just because it's a bunch of numbers stuck together doesn't mean it's a credit card number. So there has to be some knowledge of what a credit card is so that you can apply that thought process. So if you have a plugin or something in there in your email server that does that kind of blocking, yeah, I'd call that DLP. If it can discern a credit card number versus just a bunch of numbers stuck together, yep, that's a DLP. Absolutely. So this is a weird one. And this one, got to tell you, this has happened to a number of us. A laptop in the corporate office. During startup, a laptop in the corporate office receives an IP address that is not associated with one of the company IP subnets. Which of the following would be the best way to prevent this from occurring in the future? Would it be Rapid Spanning Tree Protocol? Would it be BPDU Guard? Would it be Root Guard? Would it be DHCP snooping? Or would it be Flood Guard? We didn't all jump on this one, did we? We sort of stayed, a lot of us stayed back. 49% of us, though, say we think it's DHCP snooping. 20% say BPDU Guard. 14% said Rapid Spanning Tree Protocol. 11% said Root Guard. And 6% said Flood Guard. Well, whenever we go through this question, we should start seeing they're starting up their computer. They are receiving an IP address. So already we know there's a DHCP thing going on. Obviously, when you start your computer, it's DHCP that assigns those IP addresses. They're not getting an IP address that's even close to our IP subnets that we use in our company. Maybe we use a 10. Network in our company, and they're getting a 192.168. We're like, wait a second. You're not even talking to our DHCP servers. You must be talking to some other DHCP server somewhere that's local, that's on our network, because DHCP is a broadcast. It is not something that leaves your local subnet unless you specifically allow it to. So what could we do to maybe prevent somebody from just turning on their own DHCP server and start handing out IP addresses? Well, you would need to somehow watch for this. And you would watch for it using a technology called DHCP snooping. This is a technology that runs on a switch. So this is one where you're effectively becoming a DHCP firewall. You are looking for DHCP traffic going back and forth, and you would define in your switch, I trust that device to be a DHCP server. I trust that device to be a DHCP server. If you see any other device try to be a DHCP server, shut it down. It's going to watch DHCP conversations go back and forth, and it will start collecting either a list of devices that are untrusted that are providing DHCP address type functionality. And you can, of course, have it block that traffic, alert on that traffic, do all of those capabilities. You usually are finding devices that might have static IP addresses. That's a no-no. This DHCP snooping will help you find those. Devices that are pretending or acting as rogue DHCP servers, absolutely you'll find those. And anything else that may be DHCP related that is not working properly. This is what DHCP snooping is designed to do. Switches don't have IPS inside of them. Switches don't do any of these types of things. And a layer 3 device isn't going to help you because DHCP traffic doesn't traverse routers. It's all on a local broadcast domain. And of course, we can talk about DHCP helpers and DHCP extensions and that type of thing. But even then, you're configuring that. So it's not something that just happens magically. So in this case, DHCP is something you have to be able to see things at layer 2 to be able to find that DHCP traffic. Because, by the way, someone requesting an IP address doesn't have an IP address yet. How's a layer 3 device supposed to see that? So that's where, and a layer 3 switch is not a layer 3 switch. It's not a switch working at layer 3. It's not a router working at layer 2. A layer 3 switch is a completely different animal. It's both a switch and a router, just happen to be in the same box. But the switch side is still switching. The router side is still routing. Doesn't change that. Doesn't change the way any of those things work. So DHCP snooping, that's our right answer. So those of you that answered D, DHCP snooping, that's the correct answer. It would not be rapid spanning tree protocol. That is the protocol you would configure on your switch to prevent loops. So that's what you would look for. That is the idea behind anything relating to spanning tree, is to prevent those loops. You also want to prevent other devices from connecting to the network and participating in the spanning tree protocol that should not be. That's a completely different kind of problem, but that's what BPDU guard prevents, is that type of functionality. You also have root guard, so other devices can't become the root of spanning tree. I kind of fit all the spanning tree stuff right there on A, B, and C. And then flood guard is there to help traffic, a flood of traffic from coming in through the network, large groups of broadcasts or multiple types of traffic from a single interface on the network. That's flood guard. The only thing that would prevent someone from plugging in a rogue DHCP server and having it hand out IP addresses is indeed answer D, DHCP snooping. BPDU is the Bridge Protocol Data Unit. It is the protocol used by Spanning Tree Protocol. So that's what you would find there. This is the DHCP snooping is a very specific term. It is in the exam objectives and does discuss the handing out of invalid DHCP information. So it's not an evil twin. It's not. It's a way to prevent rogue DHCP servers or unauthorized DHCP servers from running on the network. It's a very specific functionality, and most manufacturers will call it DHCP snooping, but you may use a different model switch. If it's a non-Cisco switch, it may have a different name associated with it, but Cisco uses that term DHCP snooping, and if Cisco uses it, that must be what we should all call it. So says Cisco for all of those. FloodGuard is not part of Rapid Spanning Tree Protocol. That's a different technology in itself. So those are all things you absolutely need to be aware of. All of those are real things. So if any of those look weird or you're not familiar with them, make a note. Make sure you go through them. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, and if you know what that is, then you probably are. If you don't know what that is, then this won't apply to you. But if you are watching this for continuing education unit credit, you can go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website and click the Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link form that comes up, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, if you could be nice enough to put that this is the December 2020 Network Plus study group. And in the body of the message on a line all by itself, even if you put all caps, it would even make it so much nicer. Put the super secret code word of the month, root guard. Root guard is the super secret code word of the month, just because it sounds funny. Root guard is what the super secret code word is. And if you'd like to put anything else in the body of that message, I read through every single one of those. So you're more than welcome to put that in there. But if you put it on a line by itself, it's so much easier for me to find and know exactly what I should send back to you. I can find the December 2020 content so much easier that way. Root guard is the way to do that. That's the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Click the Contact Us link. Send that to me. If you send this to me in any other way, I cannot send you back the continuing education unit digitally signed email. So that's one of those that is important. Yeah, that sounds like something using landscaping. Well, got a new tree. We're going to put some root guard on it. Not something we would use in this case, though. That's not landscaping. Although there have been times when I really wanted to make the change. This is not one of them, though. See if you are familiar with these things, make sure you're familiar at least with all 5 of these. All 5 are very different, so know the nuances for your exam. That's going to help you as well. We have time for another question. Let's fit another one into the list. This question asks, the audio during a VoIP phone call breaks up and parts of the audio are missing during the call. Which of the following would best describe this issue? Would it be excessive jitter? Would it be a VLAN mismatch? Would it be a TX-RX reversal? Would it be an open, or would it be a transceiver mismatch? The audio during a VoIP phone call breaks up and parts of the audio are missing during the call. Which of the following would best describe this issue? Is it excessive jitter, a VLAN mismatch, a TX-RX reversal, an open, or a transceiver mismatch? If you think you know the answer, lock it in at professormesser.com/QA. What's that QA stand for? It stands for QA, I guess. That's what it stands for. Lock it in. See if you happen to know what the answer is on this one. Those of you that are network professionals that have had to deal with VoIP, you have my condolences. It is a challenging application, to be sure. And this is one of those things that you have to be ready for, is being able to work through all of this. Phone calls, we tend to think, who's doing phone calls? As it turns out, it's a pretty important application. It's a pretty important function of almost every single organization. And if the phone calls aren't working, everything crawls. Everything goes to a stop. You aren't able to get anything going. I guess if you are a manufacturing company and all you had was your assembly line, maybe you could get away with the phones not working right. But for most of us, we're kind of dealing with these types of issues where people are trying to make a phone call, the phone call breaks up, and parts of the audio are missing. See if you can troubleshoot this particular problem by going to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See what it happens to be. All of these are real problems, by the way. The excessive jitter, the VLAN mismatch, the TX-RX reversal, the open, and the transceiver mismatch are all real things. They are all things you should know about. And you should understand, if one of those happens, what would you expect to see on the network? What would the results of those particular kinds of problems be? And if you know that, you'll be able to answer this one pretty well. I think you'll know this one spot on. Let's see how you did for this. The audio for a VoIP phone call breaks up. Parts of the audio are missing during the call. Which of the following would describe this issue? Is it excessive jitter, a VLAN mismatch, a TX-RX reversal, an open, or a transceiver mismatch? 65% of you say it's excessive jitter is what is causing that. 21% of you say it's a transceiver mismatch is the issue. 7% say it's a TX-RX reversal. 5% say VLAN mismatch. 3% say open. So not a lot of people in the middle there. Almost everybody, or at least the majority, I wouldn't say everybody, but 66% of you say excessive jitter was the issue. Let's talk about jitter. Because if you're talking on the phone, you're watching something in real time, there's a real-time type of communication. It's very sensitive to any type of delay. If you lose packets, if packets come in slower than others, then your voice communication is going to be disrupted. Your video communication is going to be disrupted. It's going to be very difficult to watch those things coming through here. On a live phone call, if you miss a packet, you can't just retransmit the missed packet. It's too late. The conversation continues to go on. You can't stop. Let me get the packet I missed, and we'll then take it up as we go. We just missed it. So the conversation is going to keep going. Hopefully it'll fix itself so that you can keep hearing the conversation that is going through there. We're not going to be able to rewind the phone call and go back. Jitter is a measurement of how much time is occurring between individual frames over the network. So what we want are all of these frames to come in on the network evenly. We want them to come in at a standard, even pace that is constant. And we don't have a lot of gaps between this. If we have gaps between those frames, then we have more jitter. The jitter value goes up. It increases the amount of jitter on the network. So that's why if you start to see traffic going over your network, it's nice if everything is just coming in at about the same rate. Maybe there's a little bit of a difference between some of these because some of these are coming in a little closer than others, but for the most part, it's a very good amount of traffic coming through the network at a very constant rate and having them go through those pieces of it. If we start to see changes though, and some of these have blocks of time, so we get a bunch of traffic coming through and then there's a gap, and then another bunch of traffic and then a gap, and then another bunch of traffic, the jitter values are going to increase. We're going to start hearing gaps in the sound. People start sounding like they're underwater. So we're not going to get all of the information we need to put together the voice conversation and keep everything going. So that's why when we start looking at values, if you pull out your protocol analyzer and you start capturing traffic and you perform a voice over IP phone call over that network, you'll be able to look at the real-time jitter values. It will show you what the jitter is for that. If you capture the traffic after the fact, you can also look at the jitter values for this. So the fix for this is many and varied. You have to now find out, why are we seeing jitter? And it could be that the jitter is coming from, this excessive jitter is coming from outside of your network. It may be coming from the inside of your network. You may not have a quality of service settings on your switch that would allow the voice traffic to have a higher priority than perhaps somebody who is doing some type of file download. So there's so many different reasons, but now you have to grab the protocol analyzer. You have to examine what's happening end to end. There's also a number of statistics that the voice over IP conversation and equipment on both sides will be able to give you. All of that's going to be in the protocol decode. There's going to be extensive information there, but it can be challenging to troubleshoot. But generally speaking, if you can configure your side to provide higher priority to voice, that's pretty much all you can do. Make sure that everything else in your network is working properly, that nobody's using an excessive amount of the network resources. That's kind of where you would be too. Jitter is a challenge to be able to figure out those details. So that's why 67% of you said, yes, that's the problem. I've seen this before. It's the jitter, or in this case, we call it jitter. It's excessive jitter. Jitter is the time. If you have the time frames and they keep extending up, it is the excessive amount of jitter that we're concerned about. There will always be jitter, of course, because there's always a gap between the packets as they're coming through. So that is one that might help as well. This would not be a transceiver mismatch. Transceiver mismatch would be causing problems. It may even cause the entire thing not to communicate. Usually transceivers on both sides have to match each other. So you wouldn't plug in an SX network to an LX transceiver. So you want to make sure that you have the right type of transceiver on both sides. Most of the time, not going to communicate at all. If it does communicate at all, it's going to be constant problems. It'll be a constant slowdown. It's not going to be like a couple of dropouts during phone calls. It's going to be the phone calls aren't really working functionally at all. It's a much bigger problem when it's transceiver mismatch. Same thing for a open or a TX-RX reversal. In generally both of those cases, an open means the wire's cut or the fiber's cut. All right, you're not going to work at all. It's not that the phone call is going to sound bad. You're not going to get a phone call working. So an open isn't going to work. And a TX-RX reversal is when you've split the transmit and receive pair in a wire. That's another case where you plug it in, it doesn't work. Why is this not working? Oh, because your wires are not punched down the proper way. You've reversed the transmit and the receive. That's what TX and RX is, the transmit and the receive. A VLAN mismatch means you were put on the wrong VLAN. You're in the accounting department, you were put on the marketing VLAN. You're in the accounting department, you were put on the shipping and receiving VLAN, which would not necessarily cause any problems with your voice communication because you can assume that the folks that are in marketing and shipping and receiving are also making phone calls. It might cause other problems with you being able to access resources in your local VLAN, but it would not necessarily cause your voice over IP phone call to break up. The thing that would best describe this is excessive jitter. That's what we were looking for. That is the right answer. If you answered A, excessive jitter, 67% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. All of this content, every single one of these questions, and the answers to every single one of these questions came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you have this incredibly valuable set of resources available. It's free. It's a download from the CompTIA website. You can go to professormesser.com/objectives, and I'll send you over there. I have the link already configured there for the CompTIA website. And when people ask me, what do I really need to know before I go in and take the exam? I always say, what's everything that's listed in the CompTIA exam objectives? Every bullet is something you should know before you walk into the exam. If you don't know every bullet on this list, then you are going to be in bad shape when you walk in the exam because you're going to get questions that you aren't ready for. And yet they told you what's going to be on the exam. They listed it out for you. It's a fantastic resource. It should be the first thing you start to study from. It should be the last thing you reference before you walk into your exam to make sure you really have studied the right thing. Find it all at professormesser.com/objectives. We have a lot of content for Network Plus on the website. We do one of these live study groups every month. You can come back in January. On January 13th, we've got another Network Plus study group. You're welcome to come back and have us live here. Also, 2 days from now, this is a Tuesday the 15th, on Thursday the 17th, we do a Security Plus study group here in December. In January, that Security Plus study group will be on January the 20th. If you're watching this on a replay and it's well after January of 2021, you can always have a look at our calendar on our website at professormesser.com/calendar. That's an odd place to put it. There's also a calendar link at the top of the Professor Messer website. And that will, of course, tell you when the next live events are going to be. Well, stick around for the next hour. I'm going to take your questions next. I stop asking questions now. Now you ask me questions. So I'll take questions from the chat room. I'll open up the phone lines. It's our after show coming up next. Stick around for that. Don't forget about my Network Plus Success Bundle. You can find it at professormesser.com/netsuccess. Download all of my videos, all the audio, my course notes, my exam hacks ebook. It's all there. And don't forget to follow us. And if you're watching this live and you like this study group, you like these questions, you like what you did, click that like button. I do have my friends at YouTube that like to watch how things are going. And if you click on that, they'll know we must be doing something right here. So click that like button right there on your screen. Can make that happen. And of course, in the meantime, you can always follow us on the YouTube. We're putting out a lot of Security Plus content right now at professormesser.com/YouTube. Don't forget about the Twitter and Instagram questions of the week for Network Plus. Find it at professormesser.com/Twitter and professormesser.com/Instagram. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. Stick around for the after show. We'd love to have you ask some questions there as well. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Network Plus study group. Thanks, everyone. Now I click some buttons. I push this here, and it's the after show, just like that. How about that? Thanks for being here for the actual study group. The questions are always fun. It takes me about a half a day to put these together. Sometimes I have to really go through and figure out, is that a good question? Should I change the answers? Is this hard enough? Is it not hard enough? It's a balancing act, isn't it? I don't want it to be too easy, but I also don't want it to be a situation where everybody gets everything wrong all the time. So that's no fun either. Neither one of those is really fun. You can, of course, ask questions in the chat room. We'll talk about that in just a moment. If you'll bear with me just a moment, I have to call into my own show. It's on the cloud. So I'm calling into my cloud-based service right now, and it's going to make some noises. Yeah, you're welcome. And then I type some things in on my screen, and I press a pound key, and the nice lady says,
enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that. And once I type in my 6-digit PIN, there.
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. That means that you can also call in. We have a phone line set up at professormesser.com here in the studio. You can call in a toll-free number anywhere in the continental United States, 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. If you are outside the continental United States, my friends in Hawaii, Canada, and elsewhere, you can call in via Skype for free. Just put a +1 at the beginning. No Skype minutes required for this. It's a +1. 855-785-7545. It's right there on the screen. You can call in. I'll also take questions from the chat room. I'm going to take a drink break. Let's do that right now, everybody. I've been talking for a while. Usually I wait for that first call, and then I take sips while people are calling in. So that's the real key to this. Folks in the chat room were asking, do I teach for the CCNP certification? Cisco certifications would be fun to do. I would love to do some Cisco certifications. I just have not had time at the moment to put one together, but I want to create some Cisco-related content in 2021. It's on my list of things I'd like to do in 2021, so maybe we can get some practice exams out or some labs or something fun. I'd love to grab maybe, just create some labs from scratch, have it in something like Packet Tracer, and just have it so you can download it. Here's the broken network. fix it, and then I'll have a video that describes how you can fix it or something like that. I don't know what it'll finally be like. That's what I want to do with that, but I do not currently have any Cisco related content. I think it would be fun. That's I really got into IT with an interest in networking, worked as a network administrator for such a long time, worked at a protocol analysis company, worked in security. So the Cisco stuff's right there. It's that's my wheelhouse. So something Cisco or something maybe security related. I don't know. The industry is a weird place, isn't it? You never know in our industry how things are going to go. And so especially now in this year, it has been interesting to see how the industry has changed in IT relating to everything else, because people are realizing, wow, all the IT people are working hard right now. They're not having to necessarily fight for a bunch of jobs, not like some of the other segments are anyway. And everybody needs technology, and it's going to be a type of job that's going to be here after all of this craziness is over. So it's another great place I think people are looking at to say, maybe we should do some more technology. I get a lot of emails from folks saying, I don't want to be in medicine anymore. I don't want to be in transportation anymore. I don't want to be in manufacturing anymore. I want to do something with technology. I love it. It's been something I've been interested in for a long time. Why don't I do that? And they're starting down that road of earning their A+, their Network Plus, their Security Plus. So why not do some more of those? You know, I used to have on my website Microsoft training classes for Windows 7. Obviously, those don't apply anymore. Microsoft retired those. But what would be the next best thing? What would be the next thing I do? And that's just a constant question we always ask of ourselves here. We sit around and think, what would be a good place to go next? What fits into the timing of this? Timing's been a challenge this year too, because it has been one of those situations where CompTIA has pushed a lot of their training out. You know, Security Plus was supposed to come out earlier in the year. Well, it came out the end of the year. Network Plus had got pushed 6 months as well. We were expecting that at the beginning of 2021. Now that's going to be near the end of 2021. So there's differences there, but there's some time there in 2021 to be a lot of fun to go through this and figure out those details. Will I do any cloud content? Well, there is quite a bit of cloud content in Security Plus, in the newest Security Plus, and there will be some minor cloud communication inferences. It'll be a passover, just a primer of cloud is in Security Plus. There's not really a lot of detail. I'd love to do a cloud certification training. I think would be fun. But that's just, you know, I have so many things on my list. I have more things on my list than I will ever be able to get to. But it's more of me trying to figure out, things are jockeying for position. Oh, cloud goes higher. Oh, wait, Cisco goes up higher. Wait, now I should do this. So it's a combination of things. So it's a constant fight right now for those of you following me on my YouTube channel. And if you haven't, you should at professormesser.com/YouTube. Feel free to subscribe there and click the bell and all that nonsense. You can, of course, go out and see that we're putting out a lot of Security Plus content right now. We just ramped up in the last week. I shot 7 videos yesterday. I've got about 15 in the can ready to be edited. So there's plenty of things for me to do this week. I'm shooting a lot of video right now so that I can get it in a raw form. And then I'll probably be taking chunks of it at a time and putting it online. So I'll sit here in this room. This is pretty much my standard place. The screens are a little bit different. This one's a lot closer to me. They're all on arms. I can move things around. And I usually sit here and either shoot more video. I don't shoot video today because my voice is usually gone at the end of this. But I do shoot video and then edit from here as well. Just depends on if I want to shave that day. That's the limiting factor. If I want to shave, then that's I'll sit in this room and shoot video. If I do not want to shave, I will edit the video. So that's the way it works. Is that my full-time job? Oh yes, this is what all I do. I call it my half-day job, from 8 in the morning until 8 in the evening. So it's much more than that, as it turns out. Normally it's a 7 to 10 type of job, full-time. So it's 2 full-time jobs to be able to do this. Absolutely. And it's great to be able to do it. I'm able to do this thanks to you. I would not be able to do this my full-time job if you weren't watching them, if it wasn't something that was helping you. So yeah, this is all I do, is do this. As someone who I was formerly in the IT world, I formerly worked back on Tokering Ethernet networks, learned all about networking sort of in the days of Novell, moved that into the Microsoft world, moved that into the Cisco world, went into network management, network analysis, worked with Network General as a systems engineer, and then moved to finally working for Palo Alto Networks as a senior systems engineer for the next generation firewalls. So that was a great place to kind of learn the technologies, to understand. And I got to visit hundreds of companies all over the world, talk to them about what they were doing with technology, look at their data centers. Just a fun set of jobs. If you're ever interested in never a dull moment, systems engineering is a fun place to be. And so got to travel constantly, got to really see a lot of the world in a lot of different places. But it is kind of nice now that that's over. Now I kind of shifted gears, did a complete 180, and now I can just come in here and sit down. There's no traveling. There's no talking with people. There's no worries about where you need to be and how you need to get there. I don't have a quota, which is kind of nice again, now not to have a quota. So I can just sit here. I guess I do have a quota. It's, am I creating enough content so that you're able to earn your certifications? Now our goal is, do we have content that can help you get a job or get a better job? That's the goal. That's what we want to do. Do I use a trackball? I do not. I don't really love trackballs, generally speaking. Although you can't see it here, but in the room next door is my data center, which is just one big 19-inch rack that's in the other room. But that's where my streaming server is. This is the video output from the streaming server that's in the other room, for example. In that room, because it's in a rack, I have a setup so that it does have a trackball, because if you've ever worked in a rack, there's not enough room to use a mouse to move around. This mouse is so big that it looks like a trackball. This is literally called a hand shoe mouse. My entire hand, it's an ergonomic mouse. It fits on top of the mouse. If you're somebody who's got these monster hands like I have, and you try to use a mouse, you end up using it like a claw. And at the end of the day, your hand sticks this way and it's awful. But this, you just lay your hand on. And now I can move around the screen, and my hand is just on top of the mouse. It's lovely. It's like floating on air. It's a fantastic mouse. They have wired and wireless versions as well. I know it's so big, it looks like it could be a trackball, but it is not. Let's see if I can pull it out and break everything. There it is. See how big that is? It's as big as my head. We're not kidding. It's about as big as my head. My hand just fits right on there. That's my mouse. You don't put the fingers on the side. There you go. So your hand just sits on top of that. Phenomenal. There, if you ever want to see what's in the studio, I've documented almost everything. It's on the website, professormesser.com/studio, to have all of those there. So there's plenty of those. Yeah, I got the new mouse. For those of you who got the new keyboard, this is the Logitech K860, I think. It's the new ergonomic curvy keyboard. I moved from the Microsoft ergonomic to the Logitech ergonomic, and now that they have their newest drivers out for Mac OS, which is what I use primarily, it is just a phenomenal keyboard. It's a very tight type of typing. It doesn't have a lot of key press. You can be right there, so it's very fast. It's a very fast keyboard. It's a speedy keyboard. If you're a speed demon on your keyboard, this is great. It's not a fantastic gaming keyboard, although I don't tend to do a lot of gaming at this keyboard much more any longer because I'm just too busy. I try to do all my gaming in the house now that's on a console. Even though consoles are not fantastic for gaming, I just don't want to be in here and game. I don't want to be sitting here during the day and working and then still be sitting here at night gaming. I just would never move. So I like my game environment to be different than my work environment. So I guess that's what I mean. So that's why I don't do a lot of gaming in here. So it doesn't matter. I'm not using a TriCaster. I used to use a TriCaster for what I'm doing. No longer use TriCaster. We upgraded to 4K in the studio this past year. And so earlier in the year, we upgraded to 4K. So everything that's here is all 4K. You're not seeing it in 4K on the live stream. You're seeing it in 1080p because whenever I send the data, the way this works is I take a stream and I send it to YouTube. YouTube then takes that stream and they reconfigure it for however you happen to be watching it at that moment. So they are re-rendering everything. They are converting my stream into formats that work best for them. And the conversion process that they do before they send it to you takes time. For 1080p, which is how you're watching me right now, that delay, seconds long. So if I was to pop it up on the screen right now and we were to look at it live on my side, it's like a 3-second delay. And when I'm doing the Q&A with you online where I tell you pick A, pick C, pick D, pick these answers, if there was a 20-second delay, I'd have to wait 20 seconds of talking before you would even hear that to be able to put that in. You wouldn't even see it yet. So you would have to wait that time, and then I'd have to wait another 20 seconds on the backside for you to finish that up, and then I can finally get there. So you're wasting like a minute of time trying to make that happen. It's just not interactive. But at 1080p, whatever system they have to do this happens very quickly. At 4K, it's about 20 to 30 seconds of a delay, which for this type of stream where it needs to be interactive, that just doesn't work. If we weren't doing the interactive, if it was just me here talking, taking phone calls, answering questions from the chat room, that delay wouldn't matter. But because we are doing things that are more back and forth, that delay does matter. So I'm not doing 4K yet, but at some point, YouTube will probably upgrade their equipment and the 4K may go as fast as the 1080p. And if they do, I'll stream at 4K. I do have the bandwidth to do that. But you'll notice all the videos I've been producing this year have all been 4K videos. So all of the new Security Plus videos are all going to be 4K. The last A+ course I did, which was the 902, the 901 was 1080p. The 10,002 was 4K. So right in the middle, we switched everything. New cameras, back to what I'm doing. The TriCaster I had was not a 4K TriCaster. It was a 1080p. This is a Blackmagic design video switcher that I have right here. So much smaller. This is it. This is not just the console for the video switcher. This is the whole video switcher. So unlike the TriCaster that had a separate 19-inch server in my rack that I would have to the left or right of me, this entire thing is the switcher. That's it. And it's silent. Move the mic. Can't hear. It's barely a noise, barely a hum coming from it. I can't even hear it with my in-ear monitors on. I can't hear it at all. And because of the microphone type that I use, you can't hear it at all to have that there. So that has been an amazing change in technology. And now, of course, they have the much smaller 1080p, tiny little video switchers from Blackmagic that are really inexpensive, that are remarkable. Just crazy what you're able to do right now. Blackmagic is crushing it on the video switching side because of that. They've got amazing audio technology in here. In fact, I need to kind of convert over. I'm using an audio conditioning hardware that's relatively old here in my rack, but it sounds so good that I just got to keep using it. But if I can take those same parameters and somehow get it into my video switcher, that would be amazing to have that happening. But that's just not the way it's set up right now. We just don't have it in that format. And quite honestly, my audio chain with my audio setup in the mixer that's here, the video conditioning I have, audio conditioning I have along with that, is very little delay, and it just sounds so good. I've just not wanted to change it because I like it, because I like the way it sounds, even though it's sort of old. Maybe we'll upgrade that here in the next year or so. We'll have to see how everything works for that. So is everything running on the MacBook? It is not. So in front of me, this primary screen is an iMac Pro, the older version, the 2017 one. It's not one of the newer ones, but it's paid for. So that's why it's the 2017 one. And it runs great. It was fast when I got it. It's still fast. It's able to edit 4K with no problem whatsoever. So that's what I'm using it for. It's primary desktop. It has a secondary monitor, which is where I'm watching the chat go by. So that is the primary thing that I use is the iMac Pro with the secondary monitor. To my right is this MacBook Pro. This is normally what I keep in my house. I use it in front of the television, sort of my go-to laptop that I use outside of the studio. But for live streams, I bring it in here, and this does the video for the slides. I could probably use a tablet for that these days, but I know it works well, and this is a great configuration. And sometimes I have to go to this. It's also where when I get phone calls, which we're not getting today, which I'm not sure is, we're just not getting phone calls, and that's fine. Take questions from the chat room. But when I get phone calls, this is also where I manage the phone calls from. So it's a very simple format to have there. The tablet that is in front of me, a very old iPad Pro, this is what runs my remote view of the slides. So I can see what slides are coming up next and what the answers are and kind of get a prompt for what I should be talking to before I go to that slide. And then I can move between slides just by clicking it or moving back left and right on the screen to have those things go there. And then you'll see it change on your side as I do that. So just sort of a remote control for the slide deck. I could just as easily go here, but you can't see the before, the two sides, the what's there now and what's coming next on a single screen very easily. I could do it and send the second video signal out, but I like to be able to see the video signal of what you are seeing, and it's difficult to do if I do that without a monitor here. And then, of course, I've got, since we're sort of doing the tour here, over here is sort of a new version. This used to be a very large television you didn't get to see, but that is the output of the video switcher. So anything that I'm doing on the video switcher side, you get to see. So I can change some of the previews. So as I'm changing the preview side, you can kind of see things bounce around. And you can see the front side of me here. There I am. I can't fool you anymore. I can't do things behind the scenes now because you can see me. But that's the way that you would set up and view. I see what's happening with Video Switcher. And then up here is just a monitor. The way that almost everything in here is connected except for the computers, but all of the output and the input goes into a 4K matrix switch. That 4K video matrix switch, really it's video and audio matrix switch. I can put 16 inputs and 16 outputs, and then I can send and transfer any of the input to any of the outputs or multiple outputs, so that I can take the camera that's in front of me, which is a Panasonic Lumix GH5S, and I can send that into the matrix switch. I can send this video into the matrix switch. I can send this video into the matrix switch. I can send the video behind me. Hi. That's the bird cam up there. The bird cam also goes above everything and goes into the video matrix switch. Then I can tell the video matrix switch, send the bird cam to channel 4, the second camera on here, which is what you're seeing. Send my picture of me in front, send it to channel 1, camera 1. Camera 3 is the machine in front of me. Camera 4 is my laptop. So I can switch between all of those now because I'm sending all 4 of those signals in here. But if I wanted to change the signal so that you saw it differently, I could do that just by changing what goes into the video output or input on here. So it's a fantastic, very flexible way to work for all of these. It's just a matter of running the cables. There's just tons of cables for these because they run over SDI, which is a serial data interface, which is a coax type connection. So I've got tons of coax in here with BNC connectors. And it's just one of those things. And what's nice about the Blackmagic, the TriCaster would only give you 4 physical inputs. This has 8. So I could even put more cameras up if I wanted. I just haven't done that. But that would be a great way to do it, is to have all of those there and being able to work through them. So I think that's a great thing to have to kind of work through as well, figuring out where all those might be. It's time for a drink break. Let's do that. I don't think I ever got one, did I? Yeah, that Google outage this week was pretty interesting, wasn't it? So was that the final answer from Google? Was that they literally ran out of hard drive space? I think so. They had a internal storage quota issue. An internal storage quota issue. Yeah, that's what that is. They ran out of storage space. That's one of those situations. Have I ever thought of getting an Elgato Stream Deck? Yeah, I was looking at those when I was thinking of doing some gaming type videos. They have great hardware, and they can do some 4K, and they have a nice card. I was looking at their card for 4K streaming because I needed a card to receive this to go into my streaming server. Up here is OBS. That's my streaming server. And it's got an SDI card in it. And SDI is really where I wanted to go, so the Elgato didn't work for me. But I really like their stuff. I think they have great hardware, especially if you're doing your own maybe game streaming or streaming of other things. You just want a simple camera, go live. That's a great way to do it. And the pieces of that. So that was useful to have those there. Yes, my Windows 7 videos, did I make them in 2010? That was a long time ago. That was before I was doing this full time. So I started doing this part-time. So in the evenings and on the weekends was the only time I would make content and videos. So those Windows 7 courses and really anything prior to about 5 years ago is all done at night and on the weekends. We used to do these study groups on the weekends, if you recall, and that's why. Because during the week I was in another city doing work. So I would work during the day, then I'd usually go to a hotel room, and then all night I'd create content. I'd create training courses, I'd create the training content, and then I'd come home, and on the weekend I would shoot it and then go back out during the week, and if I had something to edit, I would edit on the road. So it was just constant. Now I can just do it all day, every day, and we're in good shape. Makes it easy in those situations. I don't have to worry about, am I going to be in another city? It's kind of nice having a little more flexibility. And I think I can create better content and I can create more to have that. I think that's the way to do it. Really, a real key for this. Since we're talking streaming, this is a good question. Liren says, I tried to stream and I failed. Well, you didn't fail because you haven't stopped yet. Think of it that way. I did it for 3 years. Any advice? Like to try again? What's your advice to be a good content creator? It's sort of the thing that I think a lot of people don't consider on the front end of this is to be a good content creator. You have to have some good content that people will want to watch. Just saying I'm going to stream my game sessions, there's no business model to that. You're really hoping that you find enough people that are interested in the same thing you're interested in, and that maybe somehow you're able to be personable enough that they'll watch your gaming stream. Now, if there is something you're doing with the gaming stream, you're educating people on how to do things better. You have your own strategy guide that you're creating. You have your own software that's a plug-in to the game. Those are great things to go along with this. I would not be able to do this if all I did was create videos. This would not be a viable business. We'd have to wrap up. We'd have to sell off everything. This would not work. So just creating videos, at some point, you do get enough revenue from YouTube that you can at least buy food. But YouTube doesn't make a lot of people rich. So that is not where you should focus your efforts. There's never any one thing to having a business on the internet. And this is a business. If you're doing streaming, you're making content, and you're having to do this so that your family has food, clothing, and shelter, it's a business. So you have to have something that is bringing in revenue from a lot of different sources. And we've tried a lot of different things here. Obviously, the videos we create, people are able to watch them, and there is advertising revenue that YouTube makes available to us at the end of the month. So we are fortunate for that, and we are glad people like to watch those videos. But the very first month that we were creating videos, posting them online, and we had ads on our website, YouTube counted it up, and we made $5. That was the first month we started. I convinced my wife, here's what I want to do. I have this plan. We're going to create content. We're going to make some ads to go around it. We're going to have it on the website. It was $5. And we think back at that and think, well, that's a disaster. That's horrible. That's not even worth $5. Why are you doing it? We didn't see it that way at all. We thought, $5? They gave us $5 just for making videos, putting it online. They gave us $5. Then we just made the stuff and put it online. There was money from that. We thought that's phenomenal, because I think we saw that's just the beginning. What you need to now is have content that people can use, and not just video content, but that's why I made the course notes. Like, what did I need when I'm going through my certification courses? What are the things that help me? Well, if I just had some notes I could reference. I already read the book. It was this thick. I don't want to have to read the book again. I just need a summary. I need the cliff notes of those things. Well, there weren't any. I'll make some cliff notes, except they are course notes. They're Professor Messer's course notes. So I'll make those. Other people said, those are great. I'd love to have those. It takes months to write these. It takes weeks to lay them out. It takes a lot of work to be able to create those course notes. But once we've created them, now there's something people may be able to get some value from. Okay, there's a revenue stream. What about the videos? The videos are revenue stream. The courses, the offline courses we sell are revenue stream. So there's all these little things that we do. I haven't done Super Chat on YouTube. I've always thought it was something like a gaming thing, but there may be an opportunity there where people say, we like what you're doing, but I don't want to buy the course notes. I don't have a need for them, or it's not something I want to do, but I want to help contribute to keeping the lights on. So maybe Super Chat would be something we turn on in 2021, so that people say, well, here's $1, here's $1. That's that. And I'm absolutely accepting of, you want to help participate and be part of this craziness that we're doing, come on board. We would love to have participation. And it's another great way to do it. That's kind of my approach to all of this, is that it's never any one thing, but it's sort of a combination of those, and we just keep duplicating it. So A+ is good, Security Plus is good, Network Plus is good. What's the next one going to be? There's going to be a next one. There will be more. I just haven't figured out what that will be yet. That's the real challenge in having those. Have not scheduled anything out for February yet. January is as far as I've gone. So you can go to professormesser.com/calendar, and I usually push it out to the next month. So right now, January is in the books. I haven't, I've thought about merchandise. This channel on YouTube, as I have these monthly or quarterly calls with my YouTube representative, that I'm fortunate to have, thanks to you and your subscriptions to the channel, and they can see that people like this content. So I get to talk to them. And I constantly tell them, this is not a it's your boy, smash that button sort of channel. This is not what we're doing here. I tend to approach this as, here's a group of professionals or people that would like to be IT professionals. How can we get them a job or get them a better job? It's there's obviously fun that we have here, and we do have humorous things that we do, but I'm not out to be a funny channel or necessarily a fun channel. I would like it to be fun and educational. We can talk about things, and that's good to a point. But at some point, we need a job. We need a better job. Those are pretty serious things. There are people in adult situations that have real needs, that have a family, that have responsibilities, and they would like to get a better job, or they would like to get their job in IT. That's what we're doing here. So it's kind of a mix. I don't want to go too flippant with the things that we do here, but I do like to have fun with this. And the world of IT is not some cold, dark, non-fun place. I work with a lot of fantastic people when I worked in IT every day, and enjoyed the jobs that I had. So it's more of one of those things. So should we do merch? Maybe we'll do a coffee mug or a t-shirt or something, but I haven't found the right connection or the right fit for that. If you ever get into this side of things, you'll notice that the people who you partner with to sell the mugs and sell the t-shirts somehow tend to get more revenue than you get at the end of this. Well, that's not exactly a win-win for anybody. So that's not exactly the right combination of things that we found yet. So hopefully we could. There might be a place for all of this. I'm not going to show up with a shirt, maybe I will show up with the shirt. Like, here's my shirt. You should buy the shirt that I'm wearing. That kind of thing. That's one of those. Yes, it's not really a smash the button kind of place, is it? The USB with all the course data, that's there. That's a perfect example of a product that people asked about. They wanted to have an offline version of everything. They said, put everything on the USB and send it to me. I'll make up a course for that. I'll put that together. So we did. We have the Professor Messer USB. It fits in there. It's the Success Bundle. And you can get the downloadable version without the USB. You can get the physical version with USB and the printed books. And you have a choice. So if you really want to do some online things, you want to be that streamer, you want to be able to do that, think of it as more of a very long-term and very diversified set of things of a business model you want to put together. That's what you want to do. If I thought of selling my course to schools, I have, and I don't want to. That's just not where I want to be. Our model here is more of one that's direct to you over YouTube. There are some schools that use our materials there. There's schools that use our course notes. They buy offline versions of these things. They absolutely do those things. But that's not really my focus. I don't want to get a bank of salespeople calling into schools and how about, hey, you want to buy our stuff? You want to buy these things? You can buy it. There are people, though, that really do. They can get value from some of these books, and I sell digital versions that people can download. I sell physical versions. I ship them books. So there are some that do that, but it's not the focus. There are plenty of companies doing that kind of thing, and I just don't want to be that kind of company. I want to be more of me talking to you kind of company. It's kind of more of a, I don't want to call it consumer, but it's more of a person-to-person type rather than me selling things to a school. I just think that would take away too much of this. Let's go to the phone line, 703 area code. Let's click the right button. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good. My name is Christian. I'm calling from Northern Virginia.
Hey, Christian. Thanks for calling.
Yep, I'm 32. I did pass CompTIA Network Plus back in March.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. And definitely I've been pursuing the IT change in career. And I did finally land a tier 1 help desk position.
Nice.
That I'll be starting in January. And I guess my general overall question is, what are the? I'm definitely grateful for, of course, achieving the job, but I'm still itching to do something more network related. I'm thinking eventually soon of getting my CCNA. I'm getting my Security Plus very soon. But I guess my question is, I feel like somehow I'm just sort of spinning my wheels in a kind of a lower tier position for a while. And I'm very hungry to move up within this company that I'm about to work for. It's an MSP, a managed service provider. And they do have network positions, security positions. Those are the tier 2 and tier 3 levels. I guess my question is, what are the pitfalls that one can experience being in a tier 1 position? I certainly don't want to be there for more than a year or two. I definitely want to move up within the company. But I see also some of my friends being very comfortable in that position as well.
That's the real problem, isn't it? You don't want to get too comfortable down in any position, whether it's a tier 1, the network administrator position, a security administrator position. You never want to stay in any one place for any particular time. We would often joke amongst each other in IT that we kind of have a 3-year rule where we would stay in one place for 3 years. And then the way that you tend to move up, whether it's good or bad in this particular industry, the way that you tend to move up is you move out. And it's very often that we would go from one job, the next job would be at a completely different company. The job after that, we would boomerang back to the company we started at, but we would end up being at a higher position because companies tend to give people more money if they are coming from the outside rather than promoting from within. That makes no sense whatsoever. I realize they're cutting off their nose to spite their face, and they know that too, but that's just the way corporate environments tend to be. It's just you can't get away from this need to be able to move up. You have to move out. And you're right, you do have to be careful about being too comfortable in any particular place for any amount of time because you do get you get so knowledgeable in everything that's there. The way that I approach IT personally is if I started to be the expert in the room, then I was in the wrong place. I needed to move to a different job where somebody else was the expert that I could learn from. And then when I moved up to finally knowing everything they knew, then I could move to the next job up from that. I never wanted to be in a place where I could walk in and just very easily do whatever I needed to do and then go home at the end of the day. And it doesn't sound like you're that kind of person either. You want to be able to keep pushing and keep moving. And that's, I think, one of the advantages of IT is that there is no ceiling. There is no top end to a lot of this as long as you keep jumping from place to place. This is kind of something you have to get comfortable with, though, because moving from one job to another, as people will tell you about the stress in your life, some of the most stressful things you'll go through are weddings, our funerals, and our changing job, maybe getting a house. Those are very stressful things in someone's life. And I'm telling you, every 3 years, you now get to go through a very stressful thing. You just don't need it to be stressful. I think you just have to approach it as it's stressful if somebody else is making you go from job to job. It's not stressful when you're the one wanting to move yourself from job to job. If anything, it's a rush. It's exciting. It's something where you're learning something new. You're in another group. All of those jumps, by the way, are not going to be game winners. I have gone through, I had some kind of problem where I just couldn't see red flags, and I would move to a new job and it would just be a stinker. It would just be awful. Like, why did I move here? What was I thinking? Why am I doing this? And then like a year later, I'm jumping to another job where I suddenly, wow, this place is phenomenal. And I stay 3 or 4 years and then make another jump and I'm in another horrible job again. So I wasn't very good at this, to be fair. But the advantage of IT is you do have some options. Once you land in a bad place, there's still things to learn, but you can always think, okay, we're not maybe sticking around on the 3-year plan on this one. We'll stay 12 months and then we'll probably jump to another thing. Pretty quick from that. It's just one of those things where you have to do those pieces of it. You are doing the right things, though. You're learning the right things. You're in a good position to learn things. And you already said you want to learn your Network Plus. You want to get the Cisco certification. You want to get the Security Plus. You're working on the things you need to work on to move up and move out. It's just not always going to be an option to do that internally. But even so, I stayed at one company, and I think I worked in 4 different job roles within the same company, and I stayed 10 years with that company. It was not the 3-year plan because I got to move from help desk. My first job out of the corporate help desk was a workstation engineer or workstation analyst or administrator. So I got to work on kind of keeping everyone's Windows machine running. Then moved from that into networking and network services, which was servers and the network itself. So I got to stay at the same company, but I was learning vastly different things and learning from people who are really knowledgeable in their particular field and really moving up and learning at the same time. And when I left that company, I went to work for a manufacturer for Network General and got to use the knowledge that I learned about networking, about protocols, about troubleshooting, and got to apply that and show that to other people. So I say you're doing exactly the right thing. I can't give you any dings or any red flags on your processes and your procedures there. You are spot on with what you need to be doing. Keep your eyes open. Keep the relationships in the current place where you have. Make sure that the networking people know what you know. Make sure the security people know what you know. Make sure everybody's on your LinkedIn because that will be important when you do walk out the door. And also don't forget to meet people in other places. Go to the Microsoft user groups, go to the Cisco user groups, whether they're online or not these days. Meet those people, get on their LinkedIns, and keep your whole network constantly moving. It's something you always fall back on. You'll work with these people your entire career, and it's nice to be able to keep up with where everybody's going. I might have talked too much for Christian. He's over it. He's done.
No, that's okay, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My apologies. I wasn't sure if you were taking. It looked like you were dealing with the phone line. You were about to answer another phone call there. But no, I do appreciate it. That's about it. I do thank you, and you've been definitely a big help and a contribution and to my studying and I definitely branched off and I started subscribing to other IT channels and just in my free time I'm following other YouTubers and following the Reddit forums, and definitely I'm trying to spread my LinkedIn network, and this is all just fascinating. It's become more, in a sense, a lifestyle.
It is.
And that's what I definitely appreciate.
It's a lot of fun. You can't go wrong. I'm glad you're able to do those things as well. Best of luck.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Professor.
That's one of the things I think with IT, that is the big differentiator, is that it kind of is a way of life. You do get to meet people and know what's going on in the industry and understanding, and there's always something new to learn. You're never in a situation where you can get stagnant. When I started in IT, there was not a internet, not in the way that we know it today. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was no YouTube. So that's the way to approach this, is now you can, in 10 years from now and 20 years from now, what is it going to be? We just don't know. But we know it's going to be different. It's going to be fun. There's always something fun to do and great people to work with. So that's what I recommend as well. Let's go to 307. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Dalton Foster. I'm from Wyoming. I'm currently active duty military, so I'm up in Colorado, though.
Oh, thanks for calling.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm going for Net Plus right now. I got Tech Plus, so I kind of went backwards a little bit. I guess my main question is kind of like, every time, like I'll get, for example, like a packet dump, or I guess a word dump. And so every time that, like, I'll go over the questions and I'll read them more as a, like, how-to guide to approach a question, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And it's like every time that I go through the questions, I'll get the same ones wrong, even though I know the answer, but, like, not necessarily know the answer, but, like, know why it's the answer, if that makes sense. And it's like, am I going, like, studying wrong? I mean, I've watched videos, I've reading a book. I mean, it's like I put in, like, 3 to 4 hours of studying a day for the past month and a half, and it just seems like even on Tech Plus, it was kind of the same way. I would get, so far and understand the material, but when I go to test on it, it's just out the door.
Well, there's two things to kind of be concerned with on this, and I will say, if you are solely looking at sample exams, practice exams, Q&A that's available out there, the quality of Q&A that you will find is varied. Some of it is okay. Some of it's pretty good. Some of the Q&A that I've run into is just awful. It doesn't ask very good questions. It's not asked in a way that CompTIA asks them, and CompTIA doesn't ask them in a way that changes physics. They have a very specific style, a type of voice, if you will, to the Q&A that they give, and a particular approach to questions and answers. They give you a scenario, and they want you to understand the nuances of that scenario and how it affects the available answers in that question. The problem with a lot of places online, and even a lot of books you'll find, is the answers are just wrong. The questions are written very vaguely, that you would not be able to answer this question, and certainly not any of the answers that are there. They say the answer is A, and they give you a reason the answer is A, except their answer actually technically may not even be correct. There have been terminology that is misused in some of these questions, where they're effectively teaching entire groups of people that the word banana means the color of the sky. And it's amazing to me, because people will send me emails and say, in your video, you said the sky's blue, but we all know the sky is banana. And I have to explain, no, the sky is blue. Am I the one crazy? Here, the sky's blue. And I have to send out an email. Nope, I just checked, and the sky continues to be blue. I would go back and ask the person who said the sky was banana why they think the sky is banana. And that is just a common everyday occurrence for me. This is just a normal part of my life, is trying to explain to people that the sky is not banana. And so don't be too messed up on, don't kill yourself over these practice exam that you're going through, and it just isn't making sense, or it's not, the answer isn't quite jiving with the question. It's not really a good fit together. What I would recommend you do is kind of take a step back from it, grab the main parts of what you think they were trying to teach you in this question, whether it was a type of Ethernet, whether it was a policy and procedure, whatever it happened to be, and try to at least understand in your mind, go back to your study materials, go back to your training videos, go back to your books, and at least study the concept. When you get these on an actual certification exam, it's going to be very straightforward. There's going to be a very obvious answer. As long as you know the content, there will be a very obvious answer. They're not going to explain that the sky is banana. They'll say the sky is blue. Oh, yeah, it's blue. Let me check blue on that one. It'll be very clear and obvious. Don't get too worried about the fact that you're stumbling through the Q&A that you're doing. Just make sure that when you get a question wrong, or when you keep getting these individual questions wrong every time, break it apart, look at all the different pieces of technology they're describing, and just make sure you understand that technology at a core level and throw out the question. Just say, okay, it's a bad question. We're throwing it out. I know the answers based on what the technology does. I understand the technology. I know when it is used. I know how people use it. I know how it looks whenever it's not working. Now I know everything there is to know, and if I'm presented with this during an exam, I will certainly get it correct. That's what I would, my basic recommendation for approaching Q&A is with that perspective. And that's why you'll notice even on my website this past year, I've released Q&A for Security Plus and the 2 for A Plus. I have not released one for Network Plus yet. The current Network Plus is, well, it was supposed to kind of be going away. There's supposed to be a new Network Plus showing up shortly. It's not showing up until the end of 2021. But I think the Network Plus Q&A that I'm going to do is probably going to be for the next course, the next series of exams on the N10-008. So I think that's the approach I'm taking. Is I don't think there's good Q&A out there either. I'm making my own that I think is really good. So at least people have some point of reference that they can use against other Q&A to say, is it better or worse than this? And at least have something that is written in a style and in a quality that would mirror what you would expect to see on an actual exam. Just keep going through as much Q&A as you have from as many different places. Don't take anything at face value. Always question their answers they're giving you. Make sure you understand why the answer was right or why you got it wrong, and I think you'll be fine.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. I'm going to just get back at it and keep going on it. Try to use as many different sources as I can, kind of pick out the good from the bad, I guess.
That's all you can do. Just keep doing it over and over. At some point, it's just a massive amount of data, and you just keep going through it until you feel really comfortable with it.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the call. That's one of those things, QA just drives me crazy. I could probably filter my email right now on the sky is blue and banana, and it would be remarkable how much there would be that I have to answer. And people are really angry with me. Why does your course say the sky's blue and clearly the sky is banana? I have to do this every day. It's just one of those weird things. It makes me laugh every time. So I guess it could bother me at some point, but it doesn't. Like, nope, not banana. Still not banana. Still not there. The question from the chat room, is there going to be is there going to be major changes with the new Network Plus? I have no idea. The Network Plus exam is currently the N10-007. The N10-008 is been announced by CompTIA to be releasing in September of 2021. So I would imagine the objectives for that will probably be publicly available, I don't know, June, July timeframe. So we don't know if there's going to be any type of dramatic changes to Network Plus until the, June, July. And usually you're not going to see books and other materials available until that is out or just afterwards. So you're probably not going to see new Network Plus content until about this time next year. About a year from now, you'll start to see content for the new Network Plus. Maybe before that. Maybe they'll give us a little more time, but we're not going to know because it's not going to be ready until September. So is there new material out for the upcoming Network Plus? No, we don't even know what it is. I don't even think the objectives are done. So no, there's not even, don't even worry about that yet. And when you think about the time frame on that, the current version of the exam is not going to be retired until March timeframe of 2022. So we're talking about a change that's occurring more than a year from now. So don't worry about any new exams, about Network Plus new exams. That's pointless at this point. We're way outside that window right now. So don't even concern yourself with those pieces of it. Chat room, Kevin's taking the Security Plus 501, the one that is retiring in July, to get it out of the way before it retires. A great idea. Is my primary recommendation. In terms of getting a job, should I have purchased or gone through the A+ first? Well, I guess it kind of depends on what employers in your area would like to see. Now, if you're in, for example, Virginia, DC, Maryland, Security Plus is the primary certification. That's what everybody wants you to have. If you are in, I don't know, somewhere else in the U.S., if you're in Minneapolis, if you're in Texas, if you're in L.A., I don't know what their primary certification is that they would like. They might want you to have Security Plus. They might want you to have A+. It depends. But I like the concept you have of getting the 501 done before it retires, because as I keep telling people, the new exam is 33% larger. It is 50% of the content is brand new. It's going to be, and the content on it is quite a varied mix of things. It's going to be a more difficult exam. So why wouldn't you take the existing version that's going to be easier and lock in your Security Plus? That's just a great strategy in my mind. So that, should you have taken it over the A+? That depends. The A+, of course, is 2 exams. So you're doing Security Plus right now. You have to do 2 more of those to earn your A+. So it's not something where you could just shift gears and we'll just do this one exam and get it out of the way. You have to get 2 exams completed for your A+. So Security Plus in some ways might be a little easier along those lines. The N10-005 retires in July 31st. July 31st is the retirement date for the N10, for the SY0501. Why am I talking N10? Because it's the Network Plus Study Group. The Security Plus SY0501 retires on July 31st, 2021. There you go. So if you're working right now on your Security Plus and you've been studying the 501, you got the books, you're watching the videos, you got all your content, get it done before July 31st. There you go, which is plenty of time, by the way. You're talking about 6 months. Plenty of time. Usually takes, on average, takes people about 3 months to go through that exam. And I realize for me, it's like 6 months. I just take whatever is normal. It takes me twice as much time. So that's why I tell people, July 31st, you're going to be fine. Okay. When will the A+ exam expire? I'm glad you asked. I have a notebook that has all of these release dates and retirement dates ready to go. The N10-001 and 002 were released in January of 2019, which means their estimated retirement would be July of 2022. Now, I don't know if that will stay the same dates either, because Network Plus will be retiring, would have been released. That means that the next version of the A+ would be the 1101 and 1102 if they keep the same nomenclature, which means that it should be released in January of 2022. But if they're releasing Network Plus in September, is that going to be enough time to get that out? They may have to push that out too. We just don't know right now. That's so far away in the big scheme of things. We don't know what's going on for this to have that there. So that's one of those that we just don't know yet. But it will probably, which means the current A+ would retire in July of 2022. July, 2 years, about a year and a half from now. Plenty of time. And I think it'll probably push a little bit further, but it may not. What I always tell people, those are estimates. I don't have any insight into this. I'm not a CompTIA partner. I know exactly what you know looking at the CompTIA website. So keep checking back to the CompTIA website, and they'll tell you more about this. The exams, once they are released, they will stay around and retire about 3.5 years after their release. That has been generally what CompTIA has done. With the latest Security Plus, it's 3.75 years. It's been just over 3.5, 3.75. So I guess it just depends on the scenario. You know, the world's a weird place right now. Just keep an eye on it and figure out the details of this, and you'll be fine. I think we have plenty of time to give you plenty of at least 6 months of a ramp, so you can at least study up, earn the certification, and then you don't lose all that time you spent studying to have those things there. So I think that would be good. What entry-level job should I get to prepare yourself for a cybersecurity career? There's a couple of ways to go into an IT security role. And if we're talking very specifically about IT security, cybersecurity is sort of kind of a broad overlay that covers everything security related from computer science through IT. But if we just talk about IT security, since that's sort of the focus of the Security Plus exam, then you're probably approach it from kind of two different angles. One might be the networking side of things. With IT security, a huge chunk of what you need to know is very, very foundational in security, or in networking, rather. So you have to really have a very strong expertise in networking to really be able to design and maintain security technologies. For example, you have in IT security, you've got firewalls that are connecting onto your network. These firewalls may be plugging in at layer 1. They may be layer 3 firewalls. Some firewalls even run at layer 2. Some run at all of those layers simultaneously on different interfaces. You have some VPNs where you have connectivity that's going to be using different IP addresses and routing back and forth over those VPNs. You probably have IPsec VPNs to other locations where there's tons of routing that are being done, and probably some network address translation as well. Sometimes you've got a U-turn NATs, you've got a hairpin NATs, you've got configurations you've got to set up for redundancy, especially with dynamic routing protocols. Even though all of that is security technologies, everything I just mentioned was a networking question. It's a networking planning question. So you have to be just as knowledgeable in networking as you are in security to be able to put those things together into an IT security role. So many people will get into security because they were on the networking team. They got very knowledgeable in networking, and the security team says, we want you over here to help us with the networking side of things. The other way is you kind of approach it from kind of a more purist security role. There are a lot of companies that have some security help desks, some SOCs, security operations centers. And those SOCs they need entry-level people to be able to answer the phone, monitor the systems, watch for anomalies, be able to answer the alerts and alarms that come in. All of that is kind of an entry-level, it's kind of a help desk role for security at the SOC. So what better place to start than that help desk role at security? And if you can get usually these are larger organizations. These are the multi-billion-dollar multinational organizations that have a SOC. They need people entry-level on the security side of things. That would be another place for kind of a cybersecurity career to start. You know, ultimately, you need to learn the networking piece as well, but that would be a place to at least get your foot in the door and be able to make those things happen. I think that's two very common paths. There's not any one way to do this. There's multiple ways to do this. Some people prefer starting at a network provider. Maybe they start at a managed service provider. And then they learn from all of those different areas in the managed service provider and service provider space. And then from there, they can use that knowledge to move into a security role. I guess it just depends. There's so many different things you need to know in IT security. Some of it is sort of a managerial process based. Some of it is a high-level reporting and analytics based, especially as we get into much more automation and machine language, large data type scenarios. And then we've got the sort of operational day-to-day, keep the firewall running, keep the data protected role, kind of the marshal of the network. So you've got all of these different roles within IT security, and each of those really needs a different knowledge and expertise. So we have lots of places people can go. I mentioned earlier, there's just no ceiling. Figure out what's interesting to you, find that thing, and just pursue it. If you become knowledgeable in a niche, whatever niche it happens to be, become knowledgeable in that niche, there is somebody out there that needs a knowledgeable person in that niche. And if you become the expert in that one thing, you will be very, very valuable to some organization. So my recommendation is to go out and look at what people are hiring for relatively low-level or entry-level roles within IT or IT security. You go out to dice.com, go to indeed.com, go to LinkedIn, jobs, go see what people are hiring right now. Maybe not even in your area. Go to look in LA, go look in New York, go look in Canada, go look in Mexico. Go see what people are hiring and what they're hiring for, and see what the requirements are. Okay, they're hiring in LA for an entry-level SOC, and they want you to have these things. Maybe it's a formal education. Maybe it's certifications. Maybe it's a certain type of experience. You're not going to know unless you go out and have a look at that. But those are out there. You just need to go find them and have them sort of help guide you down the path. You will build your own way to get there. You will hack through the jungle and find your way ultimately to that pot of gold, but you got to kind of make your own path to get there. Not everybody follows that same path to be able to make those things work. And I guess that makes sense. Everybody has a different way of doing things. IT itself is incredibly large. It's vast. It's varied. There's so many different things you can do. You know, at one point in my career, I had a job where my job was to get on a plane and fly to a city and talk to people. And almost always do the same presentation in front of a large group of people, in front of 100 people, in front of 500 people, from 1,000 people. We do that presentation. Then I go back to the airport, hop on a plane, and go to another city and do the same presentation. And I'd tweak it and we'd update it. And I'd go back to corporate and we'd do some other things. But that was another job. But, there was a certain expertise there that you had to be able to explain to people what it was in that presentation. So these jobs are out there, and they're many and they're varied, and they are always something you can learn from. Just go find the jobs. They're there waiting for you. My recommendation, find something you like to do. I don't like to program. I didn't go into programming. That's why I'm not in computer science. But I really like operating systems. I really like networking. I really like security. Okay, IT was for me. You'll find that niche. You'll just have to find what that niche happens to be. But it's there. You will find it. I feel certain because it's just there waiting. There's so many opportunities available. Why wouldn't you take advantage of those? Well, that brings us to the end of another hour of our study group. Can you believe we went through all that 2 hours of Q&A where I asked you questions, and then our after show and all of those pieces as well. We were able to get through quite a bit today, and we really could not do this without you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your input on the phones, in the chat room. And come on back on Thursday. You're here Tuesday live. Come on back on Thursday, the 17th. We've got our Security Plus study group, the last study group of the year, what is probably going to be the last 501 study group of the Professor Messer study groups. We'd love to have you back here for that. We'll do the same thing. We'll do more Q&A, and we'll be able to have another open phone line before the year ends. We'd love to see you back and have some more conversations about IT. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.